Everybody, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a couple of mods to the Leatherman Skeletool. Fantastic tool set, very compact design, but a couple things that I wish it had. So to the right, you'll see here I have a pair of tweezers. So these come off of a Gerber Dime, the black version. You can see here it's got a natural built-in spring design with a nail thumb nick pointing up over there. And then we have a pair of Leatherman wave scissors. So this is a two-piece design, but what's unique and nice about these scissors is the spring mechanism is activated within the scissor unit. So there's no need to activate a lock to activate the spring like you have to do on the surge scissors. The spring on these scissors work so long as these two pieces are connected together, and they also fold up 180 degrees to make them very compact and ideal for storing here on the tool. We're going to also need some hardware. So here on the left and on the right, you'll notice some black washers. These are number 8 in metal. Then we have some nylon washers. These are number 10. Unfortunately, I could not find these in black, so we're going to have to use a Sharpie to color them just to kind of match the tool. Then we're going to be using a 3/4 inch 10 by 24 fastener with a Phillips at the end. Really doesn't matter if it's Phillips flathead or something else, but the 10 by 24 in 3/4 inch is what you want. And then to match to that, we're going to be using a nut here. This is a 10 by 24 hex nut, again matched in black. Then a couple of options here. Once the scissors is mounted, we're going to be using these two covers here, and I'll kind of explain that in a bit. So starting with the tweezers, that's the easiest mod to do. I found two places to store these on the tool. The first is you can either go to the second hole here on the blade, put the thumbnail nick on the tweezer facing down into that hole, and then you kind of close the tweezer and sandwich it between the blade and the frame over here, or the scale. It's nice and secure, won't fall out of place. You still have access to your blade, and that's how you get your tweezer. So if you're using your blade, an extra step, you have to remove the tweezer before using it, but to get the tweezer is pretty easy and quite secure. The second way to store the tweezer is the knife blade is closed, have the lettering facing towards you and the bottle cap facing up. Go ahead and put this right in that slot in the frame with the nail nick of the tweezer pointing up, and you just push that in. The natural spring tension of that tweezer is going to provide some friction between the scale on the top and the blade on the bottom, but it's such a light amount of tension that I don't think it's really going to be doing any major damage to your blade. So then you can close it like that, and it's a very discreet, low profile. You still maintain full access to your blade without having to worry about storing the tweezer. The downside to storing it this way is you can drop the tweezer if you open the blade from the bottom and you kind of shake the tool a little bit. The tweezer can fall out, so you just have to be conscious to kind of hold your blade upright if you're opening it. Not ideal, but just something to be aware of. So each method of storing the tweezer has its advantages and disadvantages, but the benefit is you have a pair of tweezers now on your Skeletool. Now for the scissor, this one is a little bit more labor intensive. So to begin with, we're going to color these washers in, and then I'm going to assemble it for you so you can see how it's done. So I apologize. Let me dial down the brightness because white on white is just too bright for you guys. So we'll just quickly color this in, and I'll probably go back over this after the video and do a better job. I'm just making this quick so we're not spending too much time on camera. Okay, and probably the most important part is to get the perimeter of it, because that's the part that is really going to be exposed. From the outside when you're looking in at the tool. So again, just a crude job here. I know the Sharpie finish is not going to look great because I'm touching it right away. If I were doing this off camera, I would probably be grabbing this with plastic tweezers and letting this kind of dry up before applying it. Of course, you can find black washers. That would be best. Again, these are number 10, so just type in maybe number 10 black washers into Amazon or something. As far as I know, Home Depot didn't have them. True Value or Ace Hardware didn't have them, and Lowe's did not have these in black. When you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, just find somebody to help you find these because these can be quite difficult to find for the nylon washers. If you want to do it on your own, you just want to go to the specialty fastener or specialty hardware section of the hardware aisle. It's where you get all the nails and nuts and screws like that, and that should be available there. So one more to go. Oh, and then the thread locker that you see over there on the left, make sure you get the right thread locker. So we're doing metal fastener or metal machine screw against a metal nut. So metal against metal, you want to be using Loctite Red 271. You can actually Google that Loctite name, and an official description for Loctite under their website will tell you what it's used for, and it's meant to cure between metal and metal. Some things are meant between plastic and plastic, and I think metal and plastic, so it's very important that you get the right version there, and then we'll get that edge. Okay, did I get the edge on this? I think I forgot the edge on this one. That's pretty good, and that's pretty good. Okay, let me just wash my hands really quick because I don't want to get Sharpie on there. Okay, now that that's all set, there's going to be an order to how we put this in. So you're going to want the bit to be attached to the bit driver. Very important, okay? And we're going to kind of lift up on that handle first. Okay, go ahead and take your machine screw. You're going to start with a metal washer first, the black. Then you're going to grab a nylon washer here that you just colored in. So put that like that. Okay, then you're going to take your scissor. Now with this wave scissor, it comes in two pieces, so you just kind of want to attach it like that. Okay, and then you're going to flip it so that this handle where your thumb goes is pointing down away from you. Okay, it's kind of like that. Then you're going to take your fastener, stick that through. So fastener, metal washer, nylon washer, scissor. On the other side, you're going to take another nylon washer. Like that. Okay, then you're going to take your tool in this orientation. Okay, you're going to stick this all the way through like so. Then on the other side, you're going to put another nylon washer. Okay, then two metal washers. The reason I'm using two is I just have to kind of fill in the gap of this 3/4 inch fastener because I don't want any of it exposed on the other side of that nut. Okay, and then we're going to add just a dab of Loctite blue, very sparingly. It's a tiny air bubble there. Okay, that's it. Take your nut, put that in, screw that down. Okay, once you've got some good purchase and you know you're not cross-threading, go ahead and take a pair of pliers here. Oh, we're going to actually do this first. Go ahead and close your tool down all the way till the driver hits against the screw. Take your pliers, grab it on one end, and tighten on the other. And you want to tighten enough to where you leave just like a millimeter to the left of the driver and the bottle cap frame, and to the right of that. So if you can see, there's it's a little bit of space right now on the left. I want to close that up a bit. Okay, keep screwing in. Another way to look is you can check where the machine screw is coming through. And once the machine screw is pretty much flush with the surface of the nut, you can kind of stop. So like right there. Okay, so that's flush over there. It's pretty tight here, and I still have a gap between the two. You don't want to over tighten, because obviously if you over tighten, you either won't be able to remove this tool or you won't be able to close it. So that's pretty tight, and that's pretty good like that. So go ahead and test it to make sure it closes down. Okay. And that's pretty good, I think. Yeah, there we go. So just make sure your tool goes in and out of that, that tiny gap relatively smooth. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So there is the scissor. So let me go ahead and show you the whole tool set before we go into some of the benefits and some of the disadvantages of this setup. So first and foremost, most people are going to care about is the blade. So again, if you store your tweezer in here, just make sure you hold the blade kind of in this orientation without it pointing down so the tweezer doesn't fall out. So there you go. There's our blade. We can go ahead and lift up on the scissor handle just briefly to gain access to our tweezers, which I would put in here. So here are the tweezers, like so. Okay. Let's go back to our closed position again. To have access to the screwdriver, you'll go ahead and lift up on the scissor, get the driver, and go ahead and close this back down. Now you have access, or swing it around like this actually. Now you have access to 90 degrees and 180 degrees, so full access to your driver. Okay, and then lastly the pliers. Again, we'll go to a closed position. You just swing the scissor out and lift up on the handles. Kind of close this back this way for the scissor, and now you have full access to the pliers, either in this orientation or this orientation. So no obstruction with either the tweezers or the scissors with doing the function of the pliers. So a couple things to note. So again, when we are using the driver, the screwdriver, you want to swing this scissor all the way around. So that way, when you grab it, you're not grabbing onto the scissor over here, because the sharp blades of the scissor are here and here pointing in this direction. So I don't want it pointing, if I do it this way, I'm grabbing onto the sharp end of those scissor blades, versus this end, I'm grabbing onto the dull ends from behind. So just something to know about. And then again, with the pliers, we want to keep this swung on the inside, because as you grab here, again, you don't want to grab on the sharp end of those scissors. So now let's go to the scissors, show you, of course, what that looks like. We'll go to a closed position again. So there's our closed position. Okay, scissor, very easy. Swing this up, pull this back, and now we have our spring-activated scissors here. Okay, what's great here is the handle of the tool becomes almost like an extension of the scissors, so you have really nice control over the scissor. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Really great control. Let's go ahead and cut some stuff. Got a piece of paper here, just doubled it up. So very light duty. This is not going to be as heavy duty as a surge scissor, but still a great thing to have. And then for closing up, you just kind of close it up like this and fold it back like that. So advantages, of course, you have added pliers, or you have added scissors and tweezers to your tool set, so you've made it just a little bit more versatile. Again, if you can find these spare parts in black, you're color matching the hardware, the washers, and the scissors and the tweezers. So, kind of gives to the whole theme of the tool rather than having these things in, let's say a stainless steel silvery finish. Okay, couple of disadvantages. We already went over it with the tweezers. There is that possibility for it to drop if you store it in this way. If you store the tweezer into the blade, you have to remove the tweezer first before using your blade. So a couple disadvantages. In terms of safety, there is a major safety concern with storing the scissor this way. So as we store it this way, the cutting edge is right here facing up in this direction. So you can imagine as I'm grabbing this to use my knife, my fingers are really rubbing on that sharp edge of the scissors. So that could be quite hazardous. It's more of an issue here on the front scissor half than the back, because the front sits more proud and flush with the frame versus the bottom scissor half, which is kind of blocked by the housing for the driver. So the top scissor half is really what you want to worry about. There are a couple things you can do for this. You can kind of take this scissor half and kind of tuck it more on the inside, so that way the handle kind of stores in the mouth of the plier. That kind of gives you some clearance over here to use the tool. The problem with that, though, is that now you've eliminated almost the pocket clip function to again put it in your pocket. Versus if you put it in here, you still have access to the pocket clip. So that's one of the things you kind of have to figure out. So one way of getting around that is you can take a plastic cap. So this came off of one of my watch tools. This is like a 50-cent tool I bought off of Amazon. And it's just meant to kind of protect the tip of the sharp end. So I don't need this, and I have like 15 of these tools. So this is quite durable, not sharp proof. Obviously you can still cut through this, but it is quite thick and it's formed. So what you can do here is go to the scissor end right here next to the handle and put this over the sharp end like that, and now we've kind of blocked that off. And then now I can close the scissor and have some protection here from this thing rubbing against my skin. So that's one way to get around it. Another way to do it is you can take a pretty thick piece of heat shrink tubing. I don't know the exact diameter of this because I just got this out of my toolbox. So heat shrink tubing, if you don't know, usually comes in something like this. It's hollow on the inside. And what you can do is find a piece of heat shrink tubing that's wide enough to go over this entire scissor. So this is too thin, but I had a thicker piece earlier. So I wrapped it over, and then I put a tiny cut over here at the bottom. And let me show you why I did that. So that way I can just slide this over like a sheath. And how did I store this? I think it was this way actually. There we go. So then I can just slide this over like a sheath. Okay. And then you can cut off the excess that you don't need and then run a lighter, just maybe a couple millimeters below the heat shrink tubing and form fit it to the shape of the scissor. And so now what you have here with this little cut is you have this nice little sheath to take off and put back on. So very, very easy to put that back on and very compact. And then when you have the nylon, the heat shrink tubing, it color matches this black and tan version of the Skeletool. So just another option. If you really wanted to cover all the way through, again, you could just take a piece of heat shrink tubing. It's got to be a little bit thicker to kind of make its way all the way here. Go ahead and cut off the access. You might have to make some small slits in here because it gets wider to narrower as you go from the tip down. And then you just heat shrink that and form fit it, and then you'll have a form fitted sheath that kind of covers the whole tool. It won't look that pretty, but again, we're not really concerned too much with looks here, more just with the safety of your fingers and covering up the blades of those scissors. So again, cap is one option. Second option is use heat shrink tubing, and that should do the job. Heat shrink tubing, of course, is not the most durable material, but for just like glancing your hand over it and not really jamming a lot of pressure, I think it will be enough. So some people have asked, I've shown this already on Facebook. They've been asking, can you still use your pocket clip? I will say, yes, you can. You definitely want to put some kind of protection, though, over the blade that is closest to the handle of the scissor, because if you don't, what's going to happen is it sits in your pocket this way, right? So we'll zoom out here. It sits in your pocket like this, right? So as you pull this out, if you don't have a protection over this blade, this little part of the scissor here is actually going to pull up on your material in your pants, and that sharp end could actually cut the material of your pants. So you really want to put some protection. I've tried putting this sheath that I talked about earlier over the blade, and it was able to pull out cleanly, but what ended up happening was the sheath also came off after it came out of my pocket. So this is not a perfect solution for pocket storage in my pop out. For this, it was much more secure, and this never comes off of the tool when I remove it out of my pocket. So we'll put that on, and let me go ahead and demonstrate for you here what that looks like. Okay, so you can see my pocket here. There we go. So I usually store it here in my storage pocket on the back. Let's go ahead and put this in. So it goes in, no problem for pulling it out, no problem whatsoever. So as long as you have that sheath, you should be good in terms of putting it in and retrieving it from your pocket. All right, guys, so I think that kind of covers everything. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions I might have missed that somebody had mentioned on the group. Oh, they said, somebody had asked, what about the screw running through? Does it prevent the screwdriver from closing down all the way? Which is a good question, right? So as you can see here, this still shuts down pretty far, but you are going to have the driver sit just a bit proud. So that's what it looks like closed. I believe without this nut here, or without this machine screw, this would sit like 1 millimeter lower, but the tip end of that driver is still covered by the frame of that bottle opener. So I think you're fine there. Plus, the friction pressure of this tool in the close mode is just enough to keep this tool closed. I don't think you have to worry about this thing opening up. That being said, if you grab a machine screw that's larger than 10 by 24, which could still fit through the holes in the bottle opener, that will be too thick, and then this thing will probably sit a little bit more proud and up, which could be an issue. So 10 by 24, 3/4 inch is what you want for this. Okay. Somebody asked, do you still have access to the bottle opener? Yeah, of course, you still have access to that. That's really not being impacted whatsoever. So whether you use this for opening up beverages or clipping it onto your pack, you're going to be fine over there. And lastly, where can I order these parts? I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning of the video. So Leatherman, of course, does not sell the wave scissors separately, unfortunately, nor does Gerber sell the dime tweezers. For me, I always am looking for loose tools, usually off of broken Leathermans or other multi-tool brands on eBay, where somebody has found or has broken their own tool and they're just basically selling it for parts. So somebody had a page with a bunch of loose Leatherman tools, and the wave scissors were sold separately there. So just type in whatever tool you're looking for and the word loose, and usually you should find something that's going to be available, and usually pretty cheap. I think the wave scissors are quite popular amongst the modding community. Not really for the Skeletool, but for other things. So expect to pay as high as like 20 or 25 bucks. For me, I got lucky. I got this for about $10, I think. So the Gerber Dime Tweezers, same thing. Somebody was selling a lot of tweezers. I think it was a dime tweezer, a Victorinox tweezer, and 3 other brands that were just loose. So I bought those for like $5 plus shipping, so very, very cheap. Otherwise, the Gerber Dime tool is not too bad. On a good day, you can probably get it for like 14 bucks on Amazon. So there you go. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for today's video. Let's do one more run here. of the whole tool set, just so you can see it. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's video. Thanks for checking it out. Any comments or suggestions, please put them down below. If you could subscribe to this channel as well as my Instagram in the description, that would be greatly appreciated. And as always, have fun, and I'll see you guys on the next one.